If it's one thing we love doing here on this channel, it is absolutely, positively busting fake narratives. And we've seen this one narrative creep its ugly head over and over for the last multiple years, ever since its inception. And that is that Game Pass is bad. Yes, a service where a customer can either pay a low fee, be able to play hundreds of games every single month, or at the same time use Microsoft reward points to get that service for free to play those games every single month. And at the same time, also buy those games at a discount. You know, the one actual pro-consumer thing Microsoft has done in the past 10 plus years, finally in the first place. Not the fact that they've raised the price of their consoles over and over again. This is now the second time they've done that. We're seeing Game Pass being the only true saving grace of what Xbox is actually doing right now. And if only they would take those lessons from Game Pass and apply to their entire industry, maybe then we wouldn't have to pay $80 for video games. Thanks, Nintendo. Now, this isn't the first time I've talked about this before. You see, we've brought up different things that happened with Game Pass where developers were talking about how bad it is for them. Yet we've seen multiple developers launch day and date on Game Pass, still be successful, still sell millions of copies, and still take that Game Pass bag from Microsoft. We've also talked about how specific CEOs of previous companies are saying that the actual service of Game Pass is not good for the industry. Yet those same people like Sean Layden were discussing how there aren't enough sports cars in the parking lot and games should cost more every single generation afterwards. No, I'm not going to stop bringing that up. Yes. But I think the funniest thing of all of this is also watching actual fanboys argue themselves till they're blue in the face. There's a joke in there, I promise. Going around and trying to say that a service that they do not have right now is actually bad for the industry, because you can bet your sweet bippy the second that Game Pass or something like it becomes part of PlayStation Plus, they will wholeheartedly agree that it is the best thing since sliced bread. And the hypocrisy never actually ends on that front. But we're not going to talk about that today. No. What we're going to talk about, though, is how game developers, especially indie devs, are seeing how great Game Pass actually is and are in fact coming back to it, even after having it for the first time. Again, debunking another narrative, because clearly, if Xbox does it, it's gotta be bad, am I right? According to Insider Gaming, Xbox Game Pass partners keep coming back, says ID at Xbox Head. Wait, hold on. Wait a second. I thought services for video games were a bad thing. I thought if you didn't buy your games day one at full price and collector's editions, you were not supporting the industry. I thought you wanted to support the devs. Yet here we are seeing actual indie devs, the ones impacted possibly the most by Game Pass, going around and saying, hey, this is a good thing for us. And at the same time, we're going to keep coming back. And the funny thing is the goalpost always keeps moving. Every time someone talks about how Game Pass is good for them, the narrative always seems to tend to switch. And if you don't believe me, look at this clip from the Mooch podcast that Astro Cyborg clipped on Twitter just 2 weeks ago.
So these developers are making money, but a lot of this, not a lot, but some of the smaller ones have come out and said, you know what, it really didn't work out as great as we thought it was going to be. Yes, you have a few that said that they were. Maybe they just wanted to cover costs. They were like, my God, we got in up to our neck. We got some money here. Let's take our money. Let's run. We're good. We're not doing this anymore. Great. And they came out and said Game Pass saved our ass. That's fine. But other ones have been smaller and said, you know what, they got lost in the shuffle. If me and you make a game, Daniel, and we have a team of 5 that work for us, and we're very small, and then Microsoft comes in and covers 90% to 100% of our costs, yes, there's a bit of relief there. We go home that night and we go, whew, okay? But at the same time, then we go and look at like player engagement, and we see that like 400 people clicked on our game. It can be devastating. It can be heartbreaking.
Wait, hold on. I'm incredibly confused. First it was if you put your games on Game Pass, you won't make any money. Now it's if you put your game on Game Pass, you'll pay the light bills, you'll pay the electricity, you'll get everything taken care of, your game will finally get released. But then who's gonna play it? Who's gonna see it in the sea of other games coming down the pipeline? This is the same exact argument we see about Steam all the time. If your game didn't get the money to be done in the first place, Nobody's going to play it when it hits the fucking store because you couldn't afford to actually get it made. You see how the goalpost constantly shifts over and over again? It just moves back and forth. Oh, first it's the bleeding heart kind of style about the game developers. Then it's the actual money about them. And if the money's taken care of, now it's back to the bleeding heart. This kind of shit happens all the time because the main thing is this. Game Pass, in my opinion, is an actual good thing for the proper consumer. The consumer who doesn't have a lot of disposable income to play video games. And that is a pivotal thing right now because a lot of people don't have that disposable income. And Nintendo introducing $80 games and Xbox following suit right behind them for $80 didn't bode well for everyone until they finally took that step back. But you can bet, you can guarantee though, that at some point games are going to hit $80 across the board for PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox because every CEO has to see that line go up continuously. And at some point people have to stop and think to themselves if they're actual fans of video games is, number one, do I even own the fucking thing? Which you clearly don't because 85% of all PS5 games are bought digitally this entire generation. And so there goes your actual idea of ownership because now you're locked into an ecosystem to keep those games continuous over and over again. And number two is the cost of video games in it of itself. And that is a massive problem. Like I said, though, I guarantee, though, at some point, Xbox will get a little pep in their step and raise the price of Game Pass. And my bet at some point probably going to be like, what, $39.99 a month? You could definitely see something like that happen. That could be a thing. But the thing is, though, until it gets there, you got to take advantage of what's going on because clearly gaming right now is way too expensive. But you know what? Enough of me just yapping the entire time. Let's see what the article from Eurogamer had to say and go from there. Xbox has made the, quote, largest investment in Game Pass to date this year, countering recent criticism of subscription service value. We continue to engage with hundreds of partners each year. Speaking to Eurogamer, Chris Carla from ID at Xbox discussed the current state of the subscription service in the face of recent criticism, noting positive sentiment from developers and a desire to return for future projects, saying, quote, "The majority of partners who had a game in Game Pass want to bring their future titles to this service," said Carla. "As a result, we've signed deals with more than 150 partners to expand the catalog. We continue to engage with hundreds of partners each year to review upcoming titles." Last year, we worked with over 50 teams to sign their first Game Pass deal. This marks our largest investment in Game Pass to date, and we remain focused on delivering the most exciting and diverse catalog in gaming. So there. Can we stop now? Can we finally stop the actual bullshit behavior that we've been seeing? No, clearly, of course not, because literally next week, somebody's going to make a tweet about how Game Pass ruined my game, and it's going to light the fucking internet on fire, and everybody's going to be like, "No, you were wrong once again, my boy," even though it'll just be just one developer who didn't have any sales in the first place, regardless of what platform they were on. But hey, that's how things roll, I guess. ID at Xbox and indie games in general have been a massive trigger for games and also game services because what we're seeing right now is the indie renaissance itself. AAA gaming has become incredibly stale, boring, rote, and honestly, not fun. What we're looking at right now, though, is the fact that Xbox is taking the initiative and using ID at Xbox to go through and sign new deals for partners. The fact that Silksong got onto Game Pass in the first place, yet had massive amounts of users day one buying the game on Steam at a good price of $20 exposes the fact that the industry has enough room for the AA game, or even the B+ game, or even the B- game to sell at the right price for consumers. People want new, different ideas. People want new and different games. And Game Pass is that one catalyst piece that provides it for you. Oh, wait a second. I can go ahead and get all this great stuff from the AAA studios and Call of Duty and all this other shit with Game Pass, but also all these other indie games I never thought I could play before as well. Think about it from this perspective as an indie dev. You sign a deal to Xbox, you get the deal through Game Pass, and then your game is funded. You can put the game on the service and you can still sell the game on every other platform as well. What is not the benefit from that? How are people actually saying this is bad for the developer? It's a ridiculous statement to make consistently. And people always talk about how Xbox is dead, yet it's so dead that for some reason, every single time a game launches on Xbox, people say, oh, it's never going to make any sales. Okay, so if Game Pass doesn't have the actual amount of users because the consoles don't sell and nobody actually buys games on Xbox because nobody buys an Xbox, then what's the fucking problem with the service in the first place? Oh, isn't that weird when you think about it and you put it in that perspective now, isn't it? Now, look, this is coming from someone who does not have an Xbox and also doesn't even really use a lot of Game Pass. I basically just boot it up, play whatever's there, and it registers it, and I get the points for the service. Even then, the majority of my games are on Steam and on GOG, but I can still see the actual benefits of this service from a pro-consumer standpoint. And the fact that people are actually going against something like this truly is insane. I mean, look at some of the criticisms from the article itself. Xbox has received criticism from Game Pass in recent months. Arcane Studios' Rafael Colantonio described the service as, quote, an unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging the industry for a decade. In a back and forth on social media, the, quote, cannibalization of sales, Larian director of publishing Michael Dowse added smaller teams with new or riskier games can benefit from Game Pass, but he prefers Sony's lifecycle management method of adding games following initial sales. I find it incredibly interesting how everybody is focusing on Xbox Game Pass as something that is damaging and unsustainable in the industry. Yet we can clearly go back and point to the actual live service insanity that's been happening that is what I consider to be the true cancer in the gaming industry itself, where every video game is now trying to incorporate some sort of wacky live service model. Even single player games are trying to add it on their own. You're looking at games like Marathon, like Destiny, like so many others that are mostly focused on being online multiplayer service kinds of games where they go through and do nothing but provide you with nothing in return and then give you nothing on the disc, and then you're forced to be online and everything you do is controlled. The Fortnite-ification of the industry, in my opinion, is what's unsustainable, is what's damaging the industry, is what's destroying so many things. It's not a service that allows people to buy a game or use a service to play a game for less money on the dollar, even though these companies and these people are looking at it from their perspective. And I get it. You got to make your bag where your bag is due. But the problem is you're not competing with just Game Pass. You're not competing with every other single player game. You are competing with someone's phone, with TikTok, with YouTube, with every other type of entertainment media that is out now today. And everybody does not have a lot of time to game. So when they choose the game they're going to play, is it going to be your indie game or is it going to be Fortnite and Call of Duty that they played every day for the last 10 years? We're talking about true damage to the industry, and it is in fact, in my opinion, the live service cancer that has yet to be excised from what we're seeing right now. It's so bad that PlayStation had multiple live service games going through the pipeline and canceled a majority of them. And even then, games like Fair Games and Marathon are still in development, even after the insane Concord fiasco of that live service title. And they're still going back to the well of that. If you want to talk about damage to the industry, that's the real damage to the industry. It's not a service where somebody can actually just spend less money on a game, where Microsoft ponies up your development costs and puts your game on that service, but also lets you put your game on every other storefront and every other type of platform, and also lets you buy that game on that service as well. I could see the problem if there was some sort of restriction where you could only sell your game on an Xbox platform while being onto Game Pass. That would be detrimental. That would not be a good thing because you are restricting the actual developer from getting other sales. But the thing is, to have this kind of ability to go through and have a service model available for a customer in this time of state of the industry is wild to go ahead and fight against it. These developers want nothing more than to get your money as quickly as possible for as little amount of work as possible. And that's really what's happening right now. And the funnier part about all of this is watching other CEOs like Sean Layden make statements like this. Former PlayStation boss Sean Layden discussed the perceived profitability of Game Pass in a discussion with GameIndustry.biz, saying, quote, "There's a lot of debates going on," he said. "Is Game Pass profitable? Is Game Pass not profitable? What does that mean? That's really not the right question to ask anyway." Saying, quote, "You can do all kinds of financial jiggery/pokery for any sort of corporate service to make it look profitable if you wanted to. You take out enough costs and say that's off the balance sheet and, oh, look, it's profitable now. The real issue for me on things like Game Pass is it healthy for the developer?" And we've talked about this before as well. Not every dev is going to fit into the Game Pass model, and that's okay. You don't have to be part of Game Pass. This weird thing where even CEOs like Sean Layden don't even get this right is honestly kind of concerning to me. This dude ran PlayStation, in my opinion, one of the worst generations of PlayStation in the first place. And that's because honestly, the PS2 gen was the best gen of PlayStation. Fight me on that. I'm sorry. I'm right. You know I'm right. That's how it's going to be, my boys. Let's be real. But what's really funny about all of that is this. Every other fanboy is trying to take these points from other CEOs and other places simply to go through and shit on a service that they in fact use. I don't know how many times I've called out and seen PlayStation fanboys literally decry Xbox Game Pass is bad for developers. You turn around and use Xbox Game Pass. It happens all the time. Here is Xbox generational hater Nib95 tweeting this: how to get a mask shard early in the Morrow in Hollow Knight Silksong before unlocking the double jump fire emoji. You need 4 of these shards to increase your health, so it's well worth trying to get it as early as possible. Hashtag Hollow Knight, hashtag Hollow Knight Silksong, hashtag Game Pass, hashtag Xbox. So the people that criticize Xbox the most and Game Pass the most are literally the ones using Game Pass, giving Xbox the money, and just using the service. Why are we looking at it from this business perspective? It's stupid and not in the boardroom. You know what we are? We're gamers. We're playing video games. And instead of actually just enjoying the games in the first place, you guys are arguing about a service that is completely optional and doesn't have to be required by anybody. Hell, if you want to look at what developers are doing, look at this. The article continues by saying, meanwhile, Football Manager boss Miles Jacobson recently told Eurogamer player numbers for the series have skyrocketed since being added to subscription platforms, saying, quote, "We built a whole business model around it," he said. "You can't just turn around and do this. This was before we launched on the sub platforms. We'd been talking about it, and we've been working out what we were going to do for 5 years. It was a 5-year journey before we went with the first experiment. Then we did another experiment, and then we did another experiment, and then we learned from those experiments, and that's when the full strategy was put into place." And that's what I'm talking about. You can no longer rely on simple game sales anymore. And you know what? You didn't even need Game Pass to prove that. You can see so many single player games add microtransactions, add time gates to stop you from actually progressing in the game, to pay them more money for time skips in the first place. Thanks, Ubisoft. You can see things like battle passes, DLCs, and everything else under the sun to go through and make you spend more money in that product. The actual $70, $80 sticker price isn't even the price of the game anymore. What's actually happening is you're not paying to play the game. You're paying to pay more money in the game instead of actually playing. That's the issue with all of this. And people talk about, oh, it's not sustainable for Game Pass. Forget about the sustainability of Game Pass. Look at the sustainability of the actual gaming industry. We're seeing record layoffs over and over again. We're seeing studio closures over and over again. We're seeing all these things happen around us. And yet at the same time, Xbox raised the price of their consoles. PlayStation did the exact same thing. So did Nintendo. Everybody's trying to raise the cost of their games and get more money out of you, the consumer. And the one thing that is possibly right now saving you a little bit of money are people are trying to attack because it doesn't fit their narrative of supporting the developers. What an idiotic statement to in fact make. The devs were already paid by the publisher. You're just paying the publisher right now. That's what you're doing. When those exact same devs that you supported with your full purchase price of product go through and get fired in November, and then go through and you watch that company and that publisher make tons of record profits and they go out and buy a gold yacht in the first place. Look, gaming has been more expensive than it's honestly ever been right now. And there's going to be some clown in the comment section. Well, back in the 90s, due to inflation, you had to spend $200 on a copy of a video game. Well, you know what? Back then, you got the actual cartridge board. And inside that cartridge was a physical board of the actual computer that you needed to put into your console to play the fucking game. It came with a manual. It came with a sleeve. It came with an actual box that you would play. It wasn't a digital number of ones and zeros being downloaded into your actual console to play that way. The game came complete on the cart or the disc day one. You didn't have to have any updates or uploads. You played the game, you finished the game. And you know what we also had back then in those times because games were so expensive? Blockbuster, where you rented your goddamn game every Friday night. And you know what? Nobody said it was unsustainable. And you know what? Nobody said it will ruin the industry. And you know what? It happened and it just evolved into something else new and different. And right now, instead of actually seeing yourself as a customer and consumer and trying to save yourself a couple of pennies in pockets, what you're trying to do now is defend multi-billion and trillion-dollar corporations. I don't know, maybe just stop. Don't. Defend yourself and your pocket first before you defend a company. Maybe then you'll figure out why Game Pass is actually one of the few pro-consumer things Microsoft has done right now. And again, this is coming from the guy who doesn't have an Xbox and doesn't even really use Game Pass. But I can see the value, and I can see where it will definitely impact a person who wants to play more games but doesn't want to spend a whole lot of money. And that's what's important. So you know what, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments section down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you want to see more of this kind of content, more PC port reviews, gaming news, Steam Deck videos, fanboy content, my hot takes in the gaming industry, and even live streams every Saturday night, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 94,000 subs, and I just want to say thank you guys so very much. If you want Discord access or most during live streams, become a YouTube member. It's as low as $1. If you don't want to spend the buck, don't sweat it. Come on down Saturday nights, 8:45 p.m. Eastern, as I get insulted by 800 people with AITTS while wearing a banana suit. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. With all that being said, though, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you have a great one, and I'll see you gooners next time. Peace!